Today, we are going to get into something huge, a really powerful, kind of unspoken rule that shapes millions of lives. And that's the idea that for boys and men, being strong means being silent. We're going to unpack where that idea even comes from and what kind of impact it has over a lifetime. Yeah, this phrase right here, it's so simple, but it's this powerful lesson that so many boys learn from the time they're really, really young. It's not a rule you learn in a classroom, right? You learn it on the playground, you learn it in the locker room, you learn it right at the dinner table. And it just quietly sets the stage for everything else. So where does this lesson even begin? Well, it starts way earlier than you might think, back in early childhood. This is where hiding what you feel actually becomes a survival skill, and it gets ingrained through just tons of little everyday moments. I mean, think about this scenario. We've all seen it. A little boy falls, scrapes his knee, he feels pain, and so he starts to cry. A completely normal human reaction, but the message he gets back isn't always comfort. A lot of the time, it's a correction. Be a man. And right there, in that tiny moment, he learns something huge. His pain is not okay, and his tears are a sign that he's failing. And when you see it side by side like this, it's so clear. It's like we're teaching two totally different emotional languages. Girls are so often encouraged to talk about their feelings, to work through them. But boys get rewarded for restraint, for being tough. The quieter they are about their pain, the more manly they seem to be. So all of this early conditioning starts to build and build until it creates this really specific and honestly really harmful idea of what masculine strength is. It's a version where being powerful gets all mixed up with feeling nothing at all. Now, when you look at these words on the surface, they sound pretty admirable, don't they? I mean, who doesn't value control or toughness or independence? We all do. The problem isn't the traits themselves, it's when they're taken to the absolute extreme, when they stop being part of a personality and become the entire definition of one. And this is what leads to the core misunderstanding. See, real strength isn't about the absence of feeling. It's about how you manage your feelings, how you move through them. But what boys are often taught is that the goal is to just not have those feelings to begin with, which, by the way, is completely impossible for any human being. This right here, this is the internal monologue that all of that conditioning creates. It's just a devastating formula where any sign of vulnerability equals failure. Emotion itself becomes the enemy, something you have to defeat and hide away no matter what. So what's the real cost of all this hiding? Because emotions that get buried, they don't just disappear. They have to go somewhere. And a lot of the time, they come back to the surface in ways that are way more destructive. When feelings don't have a healthy way to get out, they start to change. They transform. Sadness that isn't allowed to be expressed with tears, well, that can curdle into anger. Fear you can't admit you're feeling might show up as aggression. And suddenly, these become the only acceptable emotions for a man to show. And the long-term consequences of that are pretty severe. All this constant suppression can lead to a whole list of serious mental and physical health problems. And the real irony is that the very thing you're doing to appear strong and in control, bottling it all up, ultimately leads to losing control in other parts of your life. And beyond your health, there's this profound loneliness that can settle in. I mean, if you spend your entire life learning that you have to handle everything on your own, you eventually just stop reaching out. You can be surrounded by people, surrounded by friends, and still feel totally and completely isolated because nobody really knows what's going on inside. Just let that sink in for a second. The stronger the mask, the more invisible the real person behind it becomes. It's like you build this fortress to protect yourself, but you just end up trapped and all alone inside of it. And that's exactly what that emotional armor turns into over time. It stops being a shield and it becomes a prison. And it's a prison that cuts men off from real connection, from intimacy, and honestly, even from themselves. After years and years of practice, this whole suppression thing becomes automatic. It's like muscle memory. A man might not even have the words to describe his own suffering anymore. "I'm okay" just becomes the default answer, a reflex that hides a reality he might not even be able to see in himself anymore. And the cost to relationships is just immense. This isn't just an internal problem, it radiates outward. Partners feel like there's a wall they just can't get through. Children grow up with a father who feels emotionally distant. Friendships just never get deeper than the surface. And this doesn't happen because men don't care. It happens because they were never given the tools to show that they do. So let's be absolutely crystal clear here. This is not a biological issue. It's not that boys feel less. The reality is they are just conditioned, taught
to show less. Neurologically, they have the full spectrum of human emotions just like anyone else. The difference is 100% cultural.
And when you look at the data, the consequences of this conditioning are staggering. This isn't just a personal failing, it is a systemic crisis. Men are suffering and even dying in silence because they've been made to feel like they are not allowed to admit they're in pain. Okay, so we've laid out the problem, and it's a heavy one, but what's the path forward? Where do we go from here? Well, the solution really lies in completely redefining what it actually means to be strong. This is the new definition. This is what true strength looks like. It's not about hiding your pain. It's about being honest about it. It's not about toughing it out alone. It's about having the incredible courage to ask for help. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's actually the most honest expression of our shared humanity. And you know what? We can all be a part of making this change. It can start with something as simple as the words we use. Instead of telling a boy to man up, we can invite him to talk to me. Instead of telling him not to cry, we can validate what he's feeling by saying, it's okay to feel that. These little shifts can create a whole new reality.
And finally, I want to speak directly to any of the guys and men who've lived this experience. There is zero shame in this. You were not weak for feeling things. You were not wrong for hurting. You did what you had to do. You adapted to survive in a culture that told you to hide. But surviving is not the same thing as truly living.
So I want to leave you with this final question to think about. What if we've had it all backwards this whole time? What if real, unshakable strength doesn't come from building bigger walls, but from having the courage to finally start taking them down? What if vulnerability isn't the opposite of strength at all? What if it's where real strength actually begins?